We are at DEFCON 2. Supposedly Israel was going to launch an EMP out off of a F-35 into Iran the other night, but somehow I'm hearing that Russia shot it down and prevented it, right? We're hearing that we're at DEFCON 2. There's all types of codes going out. You have channels that are constantly monitoring these channels that are with the codes, and they're doing live streams, and they're showing you that, hey, our nuclear launch codes are out. Everybody's on high alert, this or that. DEFCON 2, right? The simple fact is, you, me, these other channels, they're not going to know what DEFCON level we are at. The only people that will know that is the people high up, and they're not going to give that type of information out. We would get no warning. We've discussed this. If a nuclear warhead was headed towards us, we would get 15, 30 minutes max. But why? Because people would go into a mass chaos. You would have some people that would sit down and start crying. You have some people that would, start praying. You'd have some people that would run out to church. You have some people like me that would grab a chair, go out in the yard and crack a beer and wait for the stuff to start falling from the sky, right? I've told you. I either want to be right where they go off or nowhere near them. But that's why we would get no warning. If you was at a store, in that store, and this warning went off on everybody's phone, mass chaos would ensue. People would start stealing. People would start running over each other, trying to get out the store, trying to get home, trying to get to their bug out location. Your cell phones would go down. The internet would probably go down due to a overload of usage on it, right? Especially cell phones. Could you imagine that much traffic would be on cell phones if something like that was announced, everybody trying to get a hold of everybody? That's what would happen. It would just be total chaos. It would not be orderly. Like, well, I got a warning. Okay, I'm going to go over here and sit down. It's not going to be like that. Now, you will have some that would just immediately sit down and start crying or start praying, or people like me would just go outside and be like, well, let's watch this show, right? But you would have people that would, you would have people, car wrecks everywhere. You would have law enforcement trying to get home. You would have hospital workers more than likely just leaving, right? Like, I'm not going to be here. I'm going home. Yes, you would have doctors, nurses, CNAs, janitors. It would be total mass chaos. That's why they would not give us no warning. We're hearing a lot of stuff about supposedly Israel had an F-35 in the air with an EMP on it, and they were going to detonate that over Iran the other night during their, whatever, are we calling it an attack? I don't know. We're still not even sure if Israel did an attack, or was it Iran, was it USA, or did anything even happen, right? Because nobody's really talking except for the USA telling people what happened. Israel's still not saying they did anything. But from what I'm hearing, supposedly Russia shot down this F-35 that was carrying it. Now ask yourself, if this was true, would Iran not be all over TV saying, hey, Israel tried to nuke us, Israel tried to nuke us? I'm pretty sure they would, because then people would be looking at Israel like, why are you doing that, right? See, there's so much stuff going on. You're hearing so much chatter. You have channels on here that are live streaming nonstop these supposedly military launch codes and arming codes. That's all they're showing, right? NY Prepper did one a couple nights ago, and you still got one channel, I think, that's still doing it. That supposedly all these secret codes are coming out for them to know when to arm their warheads and when to get in the air. I don't think we would know. I may be wrong. May be totally wrong on that, but I don't think we would know. How would you know what the code is? Well, this guy was in the military in the 70s, and that's what the codes were. Don't you think maybe between the 1970s and now, or from 2010 to now, they've changed these codes or keywords or phrases around that they may not mean the same thing, right? But if Israel was going to detonate an EMP, what gets me is all these expert channels on here that know exactly what's going to happen if an EMP goes off. That they can make it just affect this one little area. That's not true. You know that's not true. This stuff would spread out. It's not just going to affect a little area. Go back and watch some videos on our nuclear testing. What happened? Go watch it. It affects the people immediately around it, and it spreads out with the wind, right? And somebody's going to say, well, EMP is not the same. It just affects, power grids, communications, and things like that. Why would Israel do that if they were going to do it, right? Unless they were going to go full in attack on them. See, that made no sense. If you EMP a country, I'm pretty sure your plans are not just to knock them off like that, to knock their power and all that off, right? Your plan is to invade that country. That's what I would think. You would immediately, after that happened, you would go in. But it's not looking like it. Everybody keeps saying, especially Canadian prepper, Russia's going to use a nuke, Russia's going to use a nuke, Russia's going to use a low-yield nuclear. There is nothing going on in Ukraine right now that would warrant a nuclear bomb to be used. Don't get me wrong, some crazy person, yeah, they could set one off. There's nothing going on over there right now that they need to use a nuke to. Number one, most likely the fallout would come back into Russia. The Middle East is where you would see a nuclear weapon used before Russia. We have said this over and over and over. Other channels are starting to pick up on it. They're not watching my channel, but they're starting to say it too, so it's getting out to a bigger crowd that, hey, the Middle East is more than likely where you're going to see a nuke used. Number one, they're fanatics over there, right? And everybody keeps saying Iran is fixing to have nuclear weapons. They're right on the cusp of a nuclear weapon. I am 47 years old. I have heard that since I've been old enough to know what's going on. I've heard that. More than likely, if they're saying they're on the cusp, they probably already have one, to be 100% honest with you. It may not be some big deal nuclear weapon like a big Mac Daddy one. They probably got enough and got something built that they could use. Now, if Israel did fly this F-35 into Iran that supposedly got shot down, now this is all, no facts on it. This is what a lot of channels are starting to pick up and run on now, that, hey, this happened or it didn't happen. Why would Israel use an EMP on Iran? All right, knock them off, right? Knock them off the grid, knock their power out and everything else. Where is the military sitting at getting ready to go over there, right? It makes no sense why that would happen. Now, could they have had one in the air in case everything went crazy? On that little, whatever, are we even calling that an attack? Because, I don't know. It didn't look like it did very much. Iran supposedly now has an awesome defense system that nobody knew they had. According to Iran, they was shooting everything down, right? We all know that when Iran launched against Israel, Israel had hours to sit there and was pre-warned. Iran had told the United States what they were doing, pretty much what they were sending. And an hour before they started hitting in Israel, Iran made an announcement, hey, this is all we're sending, we're not doing nothing else. And then, they all started getting shot down. Maybe a handful of them got through. I believe there was a 10 or 11-year-old kid that got injured from falling debris. But other than that, I haven't heard of any deaths from it. We're hearing, Canadian Prepper kept telling us that the airbase got completely destroyed that Iran hit in Israel. But from what we're hearing, Israel's saying it just took light damage. My question is, did they let a few come through? Some people say, why would they let a few come through? Well, you got to have a reason to retaliate, right? They did this damage. If Israel wanted to make it 100 times, 1,000 times worse on Iran, and that air base was destroyed, that would be all over the news. This is why we're retaliating. They destroyed this air base. You understand what I'm saying. And then Israel's not even coming out and saying, hey, yeah, we did that. We launched a couple drones and missiles over towards Iran, and of course we heard Iraq was hit and Syria was hit too. But Israel's not saying nothing about it. Iran's not really making a big deal out of it, right? Could that F-35 loaded with an EMP been in the air? Yeah, it could have been. Because what if, when they did that, what if it broke off, right? What if immediately it broke off? Well, you got your planes in there. We have planes in the air all the time. Here, probably loaded with nuclear weapons, just flying around waiting, right? We've got submarines with nukes on them waiting. So this whole thing about supposedly, it had and it got knocked down, that would be headline news everywhere. I mean, it wouldn't be some one reporter that knows this and then gets a hold of a YouTuber and so on, right? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying it did happen. But if you look at the whole picture and use common sense, your common sense will tell you maybe it was in the air, as a precaution in case something did happen. Did it get shot down by Russia or whoever? Common sense would say no. Because if Russia shot down an Israeli jet, wouldn't that be a huge deal? I mean, wouldn't that be just huge? right? It would immediately, I mean, to me, in my mind, it would be, I may be wrong. You know, maybe this stuff goes on all the time. You know, maybe they're shooting down each other's jets and nuclear bombers and all that all the time, and we just don't hear it. But luckily, we had a YouTuber that heard about it and was able to get it out to us, right? Maybe that's what's happening. I don't know, but it stinks. This whole ordeal stinks. We've talked about it, how they warn them days or hours in advance that, hey, we're going to hit you here. This is what we're sending. This is the coordinates. This, you know, this and that. You can defend yourself from them. We're also starting to hear that Israel told Iran where they were going to send their stuff, and that's why Iran was able to knock them down. It looks like a big show, doesn't it? Like a huge soap opera, wrestling match or something. What type of wars are we in now where we tell our enemy when and where and what we're sending? It makes no sense. Is Israel going to respond bigger than what they did? Could. Was that Israel responding? Do not know. That's strange that Israel didn't come on and say, yeah, we did that. Right? Well, it took them forever to admit that they hit the consulate building beside the consulate in Syria. But what happened immediately after that? We shot some KitchenAid workers. That made headlines trying to get off of that Iran-Israel stuff, right? It didn't work, though. Guys, there's deals that gets made that we never know about. There's things that happen that we never know about. All we can do is we're forced to react to a global situation. You and me, we can't stop it. There's no way me and you can stop it. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You need to be in a position where you can, you know, calmly react to it. All this, we're at DEFCON 2. I'm listening to these secret codes that I know exactly what they mean stuff. You know, we won't know till it happens. Plain and simple. We won't know till it happens. And that's the sad fact. I'm not going to come on here and tell you this is going to happen, that's going to happen. I have my opinions on things just like most of y'all do probably. Some of y'all probably sit back like, this guy's an idiot. He don't know what he's talking about. You know, whatever. These wars that we're in, crazy, right? Who remembers when Ukraine and Russia first started fighting and Ukraine and NATO wanted a ceasefire so they could remove their injured? Read your history back in World War II, World War I, Vietnam, all that. It's changed so much. Wars nowadays are fought over these computer systems, right? You can be sitting out in Nevada and control a drone in the Middle East, right? That's the way things are now. It's not a line up and let's go at it no more, which is very confusing because you don't know who's winning, who's losing. Every side's got their propaganda going. But I think if Israel had a nuke, you know, got shot down, a F-35 with a nuke, that would have made some news. Iran would have, even if they didn't know there was a nuke on it, I'm sure Iran would have come out and said, we shot down an F-35. Yeah, that would be headline news. But in these channels that are constantly watching these codes going off, I can't think of the name. I wish I could remember the channel. But it's not NY Prepper. He did it one night, but there's another channel that is still doing it. You know, guys, we'll get no warning. Number one, I think we would be honestly better off without a warning. I mean, wouldn't you rather just be going on about your day and boom, there it is, right? You're done. But I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. I've told you repeatedly, I want to be right where it goes off or nowhere near it. You have channels on here telling you that you can survive a global thermonuclear war where every country launches them. Myself, I don't know. I don't know if you could survive it the whole time or not. I don't know. But if that's what's getting you into prepping, I'm all for it, you know. Unfortunately, now you're going to spend a lot more money than you would have 5, 10, 2, 3 years ago, right? We all see that. Let me know your thoughts on this video. This is a long one. I usually don't make them this long. But let me know your thoughts on it. Keep your head on a swivel. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. Protect yourself and your family at all times. At that moment, you're the only person can do it. And guys, if we are at DEFCON 2, it's all up in the air, right? That's pretty bad. But I don't believe it. Number one, do we even, you know, who knows? I don't know. You may know if you're working that high up in the military. If you are working that high up in the military, can you share my videos? Get it out to all your buddies. Stay safe. Keep prepping.